For this episode of The Weekender on CNBC TV 18, I traveled to Bengaluru to meet and chat with Hina Nagarajan, the MD and CEO of Diageo India, listed as United Spirits. Hina took over in April 2021, in the heat of the pandemic, and since then, she's weathered the storms which are regulatory while plugging the gaps of her own internal portfolio and strengthening the balance sheet of the company. What does the future for United Spirits holds, and who is Hina as a person? We find out.
You started out in Nestle selling infant food. Thereafter, you went to working for lipsticks, and then you went to working for Reckitt, and now here. That move from selling things, liquids for infant, to selling liquids for adults, that's been quite a drastic one.
You know, I always joke and say I followed my life stages with every job.
That's
right?
true.
So when I had my kids, I was in the infant formula business. So, lots of like discounted baby food coming home. And then, when I was in my middle age, when I wanted cosmetics, I was with the lipstick company. And now I'm an empty nester with my husband. And guess what? We're in the alcohol industry. I have to say that, I'm kind of here to stay.
Okay, you're here to stay. Say that. But again, even before that, you are an accidental MBA. How smart do you really have to be to crack the cat without having a plan to do so?
I think it was just meant to be, Mangalam. I can't really say. I hadn't prepared, very much. My brother was taking the cat. I just took it with him for experience. So I was doing a full-time program in hotel management and my, commerce graduation at the same time. Fate, I think destiny.
That's exactly what all toppers say. I didn't study. I studied just for a month.
Destiny had it written for me.
No, we'll give you a lot more credit than you give to destiny out here. But talking about business itself, you said India brings 100 million new, legal age drinkers to the world every year. That's faster than anywhere else in the world right now. The youngest population, the demographic dividend for alcohol, all of that has been a story for the last decade or so. What it's looking like, and anecdotally, is yes, working. But in terms of numbers, the category has been growing even slower than something like hair oil. What's plaguing the growth? Why is it not showing in the numbers?
Look, I think what's happening is the volume end, which is the lower priced end, is slowing down. But what's really growing fast is the premium end, right? So premiumization is here to stay, and just like every other, FMCG company is experiencing, our industry is seeing that, and actually we are delighted because we do want people to drink better, not more. So that's why you see the industry looking slower on volume growth, but value looks much better, right? And that is where the future profit pool is going to lie. If you just look at the demographic dividend that you were talking about, if you just look at the new cohorts that are emerging, affluent, high net worth individuals, women as a cohort, if you look at the aspiration levels in boom towns, I think we are estimating double-digit growth at the premium end for the next decade or so.
The next decade or so. And does that mean higher margins as well? Because mid-teens is what you've been talking about. Mathematically speaking, you can't go a lot beyond mid-teens, largely because a part of your portfolio is capped with the 10%. Does that happen? Or structurally they stay around the mid-teens or at best high teens?
So I think the reason, Mangalam, why we've stuck to the mid to high teens is exactly this.
Right.
Like one of the things is the price regulation, right? And there is ongoing advocacy to, at least get us to an inflation-linked formula, right? I mean, even drugs get that, right? So we will continue that advocacy. In the absence of that, I think the mid to high teens is a very good goal to go for. And actually we look at EBITDA and ROIC because the portfolio is so complementary. One helps the EBITDA, one helps the ROIC.
Right.
And for us, that is a weatherproof portfolio.
What is your share of revenue between browns and whites? Is there a margin differential?
Look, the market itself is skewed to browns,
right?
So the market itself is 80-85% browns, and whites is a new phenomenon in the country. So our portfolio pretty much mirrors the market, right? But the whites portfolio is growing very fast. The whites category is growing quite fast in the country. They are also perceiving well-being benefits with the whites, compared to the browns or even beer, right? Lower calories and a lighter drink. And a lot of the young people, and you'll know that yourself, I mean, you belong to that cohort, right?
I belong to the teetotaler cohort, so which is why I can...
I know, but a lot of people are choosing to really moderate their drinking, which we are very pleased about. Hopefully it will become...
What's the delta? I mean, how fast is...
25-30%. The whites are growing quite fast. So, it will become a larger part of the market, but the browns are not going away.
Recently, what happened in Karnataka? How much has that impacted your volumes?
It has impacted brand MRPs by about 5 to 17%,
Right.
depending on where you are on the price ladder. It's coincided with the Shravan slowdown,
Right.
So very difficult to say how much pricing is playing a role and how much just the seasonality is playing a role. But in general, we would expect the volumes to slow down.
There is an Adhik Mas, which is two Shravans put together. So could that impact your second quarter volumes along with Karnataka?
It could, difficult to say. It could impact. It normally does. But we also think the rebound will happen, in time for season. I mean, season is our peak selling period, right? So I expect that the rebound could come quite fast.
So that doesn't impact your full year guidance of double-digit revenue growth?
No,
and
we are sticking to our guidance.
a lot of state elections that we are going to see going forward as well in the next 18 months, and a central election coming by as well. With this policy, a lot of freebies coming in and then the alcohol industry being taxed for that, do you think there is a risk for this to become commonplace going forward as we go into many elections?
Look, Mangalam, elections are always very tough for our industry around the world.
Yeah.
Okay, but it is also business as usual for us. I mean, we go through elections every few years, right? The fact is that we are also very strong contributors to the state revenue. So there is a balance. I think the states recognize that, right? We know how to navigate these. And I think we just focus on what we can control, which is, catering to the consumer needs, giving them the best offerings, and, driving efficiency through our value chain to be able to fund, to grow our brands, and be able to deliver our guidance.
I was looking at some numbers, and a decade ago, tax as a proportion of your gross sales were around 55 to 65 odd percent. A decade later, the incidence of tax has only increased from 55 to 65% to 75 to 85%. Do you think we're at the tipping point of the Laffer curve, so to say, in economics?
The fact is that I think we've reached a point where it has to stop, right? Otherwise, it will be unviable for any industry player to be able to invest and do business in the right manner, right? We also have enough modeling to show that beyond a certain point of taxation, the industry starts declining. I think the Karnataka government is probably going to sense that over the next few months, because we do expect slowdown. And we have seen, Mangalam, that in COVID, a number of states, if you remember, had put that COVID tax.
Cess.
And the COVID cess led to major declines in industry, and then you saw the rollback, right, in the COVID cess. And hopefully that evidence will help us go forward and curb this, imbalance in the equation.
Let's hope that things normalize here. But let's not take away from the positives of the regulatory environment as well. One is that the legal industry is gaining more traction. The second is that there is the likelihood of the UK-India free trade agreement. What have you heard on it, and what would be the benefit for you?
The impact is difficult to say, because it depends on how much duty reduction. It depends on the phasing of it. It also depends on, what happens with the state excise, in the light of this, because I mean that is a central reduction. It's a smaller part of the value chain. If the state governments did not try and make that up in some form or the other through other taxes, then we anticipate that the benefit could be 5 to 15% depending on how much reduction happens on the MRP. And of course it will be an impetus for volume gains. Indians are prolific travelers. They see all these brands everywhere in the world. So I mean, not having them available in India is not fair to the Indian consumer.
I completely agree with you. And being a teetotaler, I still see a lot of love for Indian whiskey around the world and in India itself.
That's one of the big moves we are making, right? So Godawan was launched as a first step to take Made in India to the rest of the world. And actually we've rolled it out in New York, we've rolled it out in Dubai, and it's going to Australia now. And people are just loving the Made in India.
Speaking about another positive aspect of the regulatory environment, Maharashtra, where the duties were cut, what kind of consumer behavior did you see after that?
Definitely there was an increase in existing volumes. I mean, Maharashtra was one of the highest priced markets for, bottled in origin scotch, for instance, right? So the moment the duties came down, People just started buying from the state, which helps the state revenue and the state's coffers, right? So there was a volume uplift. There was a volume uplift of 10 to 15% at least. And actually that has happened state after state. So, Delhi prior to the route to market change had dropped volumes. We saw a huge increase in volume. West Bengal did the same. And we saw an uplift in volume there as well. And it actually is a win-win for both the industry and the government.
So what about Telangana? When do you expect a price hike coming out there, and when do you see your margins go back, gross margins go back to the 44-45% range?
Right, Telangana is a bit of a balance. It's gone a bit up and down. I mean, we have again ongoing discussions with Telangana. I mean, really, I can't comment on when they will. But I'm hopeful because we have seen, as you said, we have seen positive progressive policy rollout in a number of states, right?
Where do you see raw material prices? Because ENA has been on an inflationary trend. This is just an additional pressure there. Glass is a seller's market.
I think the inflationary pressures will continue. What we are seeing, Mangalam, though, is that last year we saw double-digit inflation, right? This year we are seeing high single-digit inflation. I don't think it's going away in the short term. And ENA prices, as you rightly said, I think the EBP program goes on. Broken rice prices are on the rise. I think monsoon shortfall has not helped. So we continue to expect inflationary pressure there. So we, like I said, again, we are focused on what we know we have to do, which is really double down on productivity, on mix, revenue growth management, and continue to deliver the resilient margins that we've managed to do over the last couple of years.
The sense I get is it will be business as usual for you, irrespective of the regulatory environment. If there is a regulatory problem, then it will be for the industry. In that as well, you all would be best placed. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about your own cost savings program and your productivity and innovation program. I remember you were looking at eliminating cartons and that would save you some money. You were looking at other cost cutting measures as well. How much is yet to play out?
Ask a CEO and they'll say we've got decades of cost savings ahead. We came with a legacy structure, right, from our acquisition times.
Yes.
Right? We had 97 plants. We came down to 40 odd. Now we are on a journey where we announced the supply agility program last year, and our footprint is on an optimization, and we are going to reduce further, right? And at the end of that program, we expect cost efficiencies of about 150 crores a year, right? So there is still a lot of juice there. So we are extracting efficiency on our marketing spend. We have put in place digital tools for our commercial team, right? That helps them monitor trade spend and to optimize that state by state, SKU by SKU. So, and COGS, I mean, there is enough and more in our factories. And of course, we work on bigger initiatives, right? So grain indexed,
Yes.
contracts for ENA, right? Co-location to give us savings on logistics. In every part of the value chain, still lots of initiatives to pull out value. And our ambition always is, Mangalam, to be able to offset at least half the inflation through productivity. And if you look at our track record for the last 5-6 years, we've been doing that, and we expect to do that this year as well.